Famous last words of foolish jaybirds. It's Rhyme and Reason 742.
There's a rhyme and reason for your life. There's a rhyme and reason why you're...
Hey there, Tony here, and I'm talking about birds, but not ordinary birds. I'm talking about those foolish jaybirds. And I'm not talking about the ordinary jaybirds. I'm talking about jaybirds in the human species. I read a post from a friend on social media, thanks and a hat tip to Alan, if you're listening, about some famous last words from some famous atheists. Oh my goodness, those still exist? Yeah, they do, unfortunately. And when you read some of these famous last words, oh man, you can just sense the despair. It's, as I described it, it's chilling. But first, I'm going to explain what I meant by the famous last words of foolish jaybirds. Jaybirds, what's that? You just looking for a rhyme? Well, back in medieval days, when I was growing up, the term jaybird was Southern slang for a scoundrel or a rascal. Let's get that jaybird out of here. He ain't doing nobody no good. And there were other uses for the word, of course, but for the sake of what I'm talking about right now, that'll do. I mean, rascal or scoundrel, those jaybirds. It wasn't complimentary, but it was calling somebody something without, you didn't have to be vulgar about it or curse or anything. Anyway, in the post that I read about this, there were 14 examples of famous last words from those people. But I'm just going to share 3 of what I hope are the better known ones, the people. And first there's Thomas Paine. He was a writer in the beginning years of America. He was considered a patriot. And but he also wrote The Age of Reason, so you could look that up. And here's what he said that mentioned that book, as a matter of fact. His famous last words, according to those who, I guess, kept a record of that, he said something to the effect of, "Stay with me, for God's sake. I cannot bear to be left alone. Oh, Lord, help me. Oh, God, what have I done to suffer so much? What will become of me hereafter? I would give worlds, if I had them, that The Age of Reason had never been published. Oh, Lord, help me. Christ, help me. No, don't leave. Stay with me. Send even a child to stay with me, for I am on the edge of hell, here, alone. If ever the devil had an agent, I have been that one." Man, that sounds like a mortal soul filled with fear of that full oncoming realization and the knowledge that ideas and choices can have eternal consequences. I think Thomas Paine was getting a glimpse into where he was headed. Maybe there, he had the last second reprieve. I mean, he was crying out to the Lord. And the Lord says in the Bible that he wishes that none would perish. And maybe he had mercy even on Thomas Paine, who, waited till the last second. Maybe that happened. Okay, we'll move on from Thomas Paine to Joseph Stalin. Yeah, maybe you recall that you learned in history that he was responsible for somewhere between 20 and 60 million deaths. That's 20 and 60 million deaths that Joseph Stalin was responsible for. And the worst part, I guess, if you could say worst, it's always worse. But those were people from his own country. Yeah, I mean, come on. You don't get much worse than that. Well, here's what his daughter, Svetlana, said about his death, Joseph Stalin. She said, "My father died a difficult and terrible death." And then she kind of puts a side note in there, "God grants an easy death only to the just." At what seemed the very last moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and cast a glance over everyone in the room. It was a terrible glance, insane, or perhaps angry. His left hand was raised as though he were pointing to something above and bringing down a curse on us all. The gesture was full of menace. The next moment, he was dead. Whoa. So he had no words, no actual words, but what he did, the description of what he did, that actually speaks volumes, right? Svetlana understood her father was tormented in his last moments of life, and his torment will go on forever because he made choices. He made choices that put him in direct opposition to the perfect judge of all souls. But fools will not learn a thing from Stalin's evil mistakes. Fools will not do it. Those foolish jaybirds, they're not going to learn from Stalin's evil mistakes. And so let's move on to my third and final example here. Mr. Peacenik himself, Gandhi, yeah. Mahatma, huh? What? You know, that skinny runt who threw temper tantrums, wore a diaper, and, you know, he just didn't get his way. He threw temper tantrums. Yeah, that guy. When he died, he said, "For the first time in 50 years, I find myself in the slough, or slough of despond, depending on how you want to pronounce that. All about me is darkness. I am praying for light." His prayer was probably unfruitful and unproductive because unless he knew Jesus, Gandhi was most likely praying to a false god. And he was praying to unhearing ears because false gods can't hear because they don't exist. And so to no one and nothing, that's who he was praying to. And praying for light, that's an exercise in futility when you don't understand that Jesus is the only one who can provide that light. So Mahatma probably, I don't see any reason to believe otherwise, probably went to hell and is enduring torment, has been ever since, and will forevermore, because he refused to understand that his Creator who loves him gave him a way to avoid that, and he didn't want that. He wanted Gandhi's way. I love the way the article I read from that Alan shared, it finished with comparisons from the Apostle Paul and Jesus and their perspective on death. And if you want to know and understand their perspective, there's a great book, a really, really great book, the greatest book, and I can recommend it with unending and everlasting enthusiasm. If you'd like to read that book, I can tell you where to look. You might love the words inside if you let them be your guide. Or you can join those dead jaybirds and speak your own famous last words. I'll leave you with that ominous thought. Until next time, this is Tony from Tony Funderburk. And don't forget, life does have rhyme and reason because God made you.
There's a rhyme and reason.